Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk coming to you live and direct on this Wednesday afternoon following a walk-off loss by the boys in blue in 11 innings in the rubber game of their three-game series in Milwaukee. Crew takes it 3-2 after a 5-0 win yesterday. That means a series win for Milwaukee, who had been 0 for the season after the Royals spoiled their opening day. But it is the Royals who will get on a plane, come back to Kansas City, holding a series loss and a 2-4 record to start 2025. If it is any consolation, this is exactly how 2024 started, all the way down to a walk-off loss in Game 6, leading to a 2-4 record right before a 7-game homestand to follow. Last year, the Royals won all 7 of those games.
I would call this a run-off loss. They were sprinting pretty hard to home plate.
Yeah, suicide squeeze. One of the most fun plays in baseball. And a perfect bunt by Bryce Terang. And you can't really fault Sam Long or the defense for anything that happened there. Great bunt. Give him credit. Brewers win 3-2. You just heard it here on 580 WIBW FM 104.9. We are online at 580WIBW.com. We are live and direct via video on our YouTube stream. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. You can also watch us on Facebook at WIBW News. I'm Dan Lucero. That's Brendan Dworzinski. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a bit. We are with you until 5:30 this afternoon, and we will break away for K-State baseball. Batcats right now being projected as a regional host in the NCAA tournament, given their early run of form in Big 12 play, 7-2 in the Big 12. They've got midweek action today, a little in-state rivalry with Wichita State, the Shockers, coming to Toynton Family Stadium.
A couple things real quick to note. One, I believe it was D1Baseball.com and their projections that had K-State hosting a regional. The number 2 team, Oklahoma, that would be fun. That'd be a lot of fun to get OU coming to Manhattan for a regional. Additionally, I think it's a good thing that K-State and KU play Wichita State in baseball every year. I more and more every year believe strongly that outside of football and maybe basketball, maybe every sport should just re-regionalize the conferences.
Schedule regionally,
There is no reason why KU softball or K-State baseball should have to travel to Morgantown middle of the week. No, re-regionalize them. Play Wichita State and Missouri State and Missouri and Creighton and Nebraska and the Oklahoma schools. That should be the conference for non-football. And I kind of think basketball should do the same, but fine. It's a moneymaker. So leave the basketball alone. Everyone else play in a truly regional conference. That's my belief anyway. So I like when K-State and KU play Wichita State in baseball.
I do too.
It's fun.
I enjoy it. You'll get to hear it tonight here at 580 WIBW FM 104.9 on the K-State Sports Network. Pre-game coverage getting underway at 5:30. So we're with you until then. It is a very condensed program, a late start and an early exit for us today here on 580 Sports Talk. I appear to have misspoken. I regret the error, my first. From the text line from the 785. The Cats are actually 8-1 in Big 12 play. I forgot they had swept Texas Tech last weekend. So they are now 8-1 in Big 12 play, not 7-2. I was shortchanging the Fighting Pete Hugheses. My apologies for that. My thanks to our texter. You can text the program. The number is 785-272-9429. That is 785-272-9429. You can also interact with us in the YouTube comments. Jump on in. If you are watching the show on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, would love to hear from you as we go along today. Coming up on the show, we're going to talk a little Chiefs. I thought a really interesting quote from The Athletic today, a piece by Mike Sando, where he gets team executives from around the league off the record, or anonymously, I should say, to talk about how the off seasons are going for other teams. I thought there was a fascinating quote about the Chiefs from one unnamed AFC exec that is worth breaking down. We're also going to talk K-State. First day of spring football today. Who better to discuss that with than Tim Fitzgerald? Go powercat.com for the Wildcat Wrap-up. He'll join us bottom of the 4 o'clock hour. We'll get his thoughts on that. Also, what the transfer portal might start to look like for K-State men's and women's basketball. And A little Batcats, too, since we do have them on the air. We'll have our 580 Sports Talk headlines. We'll have our first What Is Wrong With You battle of the month of April. That is all still to come here on today's edition of 580 Sports Talk. We'll start with the Royals, who were the offense was offensive the last 2 days in Milwaukee against a pitching staff that had absolutely been ravaged their first 4 games of the season, first by the Yankees and then by the Royals in the opener on Monday. Combined shutout yesterday in a 5-0 loss, and then today just 2 runs for the Royals on 4 hits and a walk. That's 5 base runners in 11 innings of baseball, 1 walk, and 14 strikeouts in 11 innings. And there is no way around the fact that everybody up and down the offense was stinky. Hunter Renfroe with the golden sombrero today, 0 for 4 Ks. Kyle Isbell struck out twice. Jonathan India struck out 3 times, including once looking late in the game with the runner in scoring position. That was the part that was most frustrating about today's game to me. Was it's one thing if your big guys don't come through. That happens. It's baseball. Even your best hitters are going to fail more often than they succeed. But the at-bats in the 9th, 10th, and 11th by India and Witt and Pasquantino and Perez sucked. They were crappy at-bats. They were strikeouts. They were not competitive at-bats. And it's one thing to have a competitive at-bat. Sometimes a pitcher beats you. You tip your cap, all these things. 162-game season. We're not going to get too worked up about a loss in Game 6. We're not going to get worked up about a 2-4 record. You can recover from a 2-4 start. But it is frustrating to watch those guys at the top of the Royals order come up small in big spots at the end of the game. It was there for the taking for the Royals. The bullpen had been really good. Lucas Erceg had pitched his way out of a jam in the 7th. John Schreiber worked a clean 8. And the game is there for the Royals in the 9th with Jonathan India having doubled to left field and the big guns coming on to try and give the Royals the lead in a game that was tied at 1 at the time. And Bobby Witt Jr. struck out swinging, and Vinny Pasquantino had a miserable at-bat.
Yeah, that was... for my money, that was the worst at bat of the entire game.
And he struck out swinging. And then Salvador Perez struck out swinging to open the 10th. He got bailed out by Michael Massey, who ended up driving in the pinch hitter the pinch runner Tyler Tolbert. But then the Royals ran themselves out of more when Michael Garcia was caught stealing. Royals no bueno on the base paths early this season. In 6 games, they have not been particularly proficient stealing bases. And then the bottom of the 10th, after an escape act by Carlos Estevez to strand the bases loaded with nobody out after an utterly bogus balk call. I cannot stress to you folks who are not watching the game, Carlos Estevez didn't balk. He didn't do anything. I have no idea what John Tumpane saw and called a balk to move the winning run to third with nobody out.
Yeah.
And Estevez, baseball's not really a ball don't lie sport. The ball lies a lot in baseball. That's why they play 162 games to balance things out. But Estevez pitches out of that jam in the 10th. Then in the 11th, you've got Renfroe at third with 1 out, and I hate giving up an out to move a runner to third for the bottom of your order as the visiting team. I hate that so much. Matt Quatraro, far from the only manager who does that. I understand the argument for it. I just don't like it. I don't like it when it works, never mind when it doesn't. And it didn't, because Freddie Fermin grounded out, and then Jonathan India got caught looking. Again, go ahead, run at third. He's caught looking the 11th. If the Royals' best guys don't come through, there is not enough offense on this baseball team. That is not a revelatory statement, but you saw today in the clutch just how true that is for this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's the downside you've got to live with as the roster is currently constructed. And I don't think that takes away from the point we and I were making the other day, that look, I still think this team, building with the top 5 you have in the order, India to Witt to Vinny to Salvi to Massey, generally speaking, that's still a really good group to build from. The problem is you need to rely on those guys to be really good all the time. I mean, it's a continuation, sort of. Vinny was hurt at the end of last year, but it's a continuation of what we saw at the end of last season, right? Where if Witt was not doing everything, and he was hitting a home run and then Salvi was hitting a home run, where was the offense coming from? You were relying on Pham and Grossman and these guys who were end-of-season scrap heap waiver wire pickups to do anything. You're seeing a little bit more of that today, where if the big guns or 3 out of the 5 so-called big guns are not producing for you, you don't really have anything. And that's where you concern yourself if you're the Royals. You're never going to have 9 guys who are legitimately great hitters, obviously. And every team is going to run into a guy like a Kyle Isbell who is not going to produce a lot for you at the plate, but he's such a good defensive player, you live with it. The Royals just have such a strong drop-off from their best to their worst in their regular 9. And that's where the concern comes from. And you see that in a game like this, where after, of course, on Monday, I talked about how garbage the Brewers pitching is. Suddenly they look awesome the last 2 days. But that being said, I
they
think
got around to their best starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta, through 8 2-hit innings, and got to actually use their good relievers instead of all their bad minus side guys.
I think the Royals are better than their offense has shown the last 2 days. But the concern is, how often are you going to see what we've seen the last 2 days? And that's where things get a little bit scary.
Yeah, nobody wins a lot of games when you score 2 runs. And the Royals pitching staff held up as best they could. Only 1 earned run in their 10 1/3 innings. The bullpen behind Cole Reagans was actually pretty solid, working their way out of some significant jams. I mentioned Urseg in the 7th. Estevez wheedling his way out of the bases loaded, nobody out jam there in the 10th. Cole Reagans was awesome. 5 innings, 1 run, 5 hits, 10 strikeouts. Inefficient. That's why he didn't pitch a 6th inning. I thought he nibbled a bit too much with as good as his stuff was in the 4th inning, in the 5th inning, maybe looking for the punch out instead of just going after hitters he had a really good curveball. He had a really good changeup, except the one he hung to Jackson Churio in the 1st inning that got hit for a home run. And he had the big fastball going. That was ace stuff from Cole Reagans. The disappointing part was that he only got to show it for 5 innings because he got extended. That 4th inning in particular, he threw nearly 30 pitches in the 4th. I think it was 28 exactly. And that meant that he couldn't go any deeper into the game. So the Royals had to go through. The only guy left in the bullpen was Chris Stratton. So you know where he stands in the pecking order, which is still not where most people would prefer he stand in the pecking order.
Yeah.
But that's where he's at. And with an off day tomorrow, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it comes back to you got to score runs. You got to score runs. And the Royals are more dependent than most teams on their best guys. Matt Lamar, I think from Royals Review. Matt Lamar just posted this on Blue Sky. Remember how we knew the Royals offense in the outfield was bad last year? In fact, it was the league's worst outfield offense last season. And then they didn't add anybody to the outfield mix unless you count Jonathan India, who's been playing some left field. The Royals' 3 core outfielders, Matt Lamar has these stats after the first week of games. MJ Melendez is hitting and slugging .077 with a 200 on-base percentage. Kyle Isbell is hitting .133. That is also his on-base percentage. He's slugging 200. He had that opening day double. Hunter Renfroe is hitting .111 with a 167 on base. Remember his double that he hit? I think it was Sunday, where the Guardians lost in the sun. So that's his extra base hit. And his on-base percentage is the best of the bunch at .238. That is revolting. And look, that's where you're supposed to get offense. Like, it's nice that the Royals have elite offensive production from a shortstop. And it's great that they've got a catcher who can bop 25 to 30 home runs. But most teams, outfield is an offensive position. That's where you're getting offense from, particularly the corner.
Yes.
And that's what we've got through the first week from Melendez, Isbell, and Renfroe. Now, if you want to say only 2 of those guys are playing at a time because India's been playing a lot of left field, okay. The numbers are the numbers. And again, this is short sample size theater, but not so much when it's a continuation of the trend from last year, that the offense from the bottom of the order, and the offense in particular from the Royals outfielders, is simply not adequate. And if the aircraft carriers at the top of the order don't float this thing, this is what it looks like. It's hard to watch because you just don't have a lot of faith in, like if Perez makes an out, like, you know, go to the fridge or go do something else. for the next inning and a half to 2 innings. Just those guys aren't doing anything.
Yeah, and there was a little of the Babbitt fairy not giving gifts to the Royals. Like Kevin Biggio hit a rocket at what was that, the 8th inning?
I think it was the 8th. Yeah, he hit a seed. It was right at Rhys Hoskins.
Yeah, Rhys Hoskins makes a nice catch going down to a knee, and that's one of those. Well, he did the right thing at the plate. He hit the ball really hard. It goes to the wrong guy. So that's why we do the 40 games thing before we can really assess the team. It's the only good thing Dayton Moore said for the last 7 years he was with the club. But I do think this was just emblematic of what we always knew could be the Royals' doom this year, which is you just don't have enough firepower after Salvi or Massey if you want to be, giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Coming up in the only full hour of the show we have today, the 4 o'clock hour, Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us for the Wildcat Wrap-up. Lots of K-State stuff to talk about with Fitz. Start of spring practice. Chris Kleiman spoke to the media earlier today. We'll get Fitz's thoughts on what the head coach had to say, as well as his early transfer portal thoughts for men's and women's basketball. We've also got What Is Wrong With You. We're going to talk about the Chiefs. An interesting quote from an anonymous AFC executive about the Chiefs and their offseason plan and their current roster building strategy. Are they right? And is it the right one for the Chiefs moving forward? We're going to talk about that next. We got a lot more to come here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. First full hour, only full hour of 580 Sports Talk on this hump day. So glad you're with us on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and a special hello to our video viewers today. If you're checking us out on the YouTube, 580 Sports Talk is the name of the channel. You can also watch us on Facebook on our page, WIBW News. Great to be along with all of you today following Royals baseball. Again, we're with you until 5:30 this evening when we'll make way for K-State baseball. A lot of hardball on the radio today. The sun shines brighter when there's baseball on the radio. Firmly believe that that's true. Even on a cloudy day, the clouds are like not as cloudy.
I always listen when I can to the when I will watch the Cubs anyway, because can't watch the Royals and MLB TV around here. I always put it on the radio broadcast with the TV video.
Yes.
That's the way to do it. Now, yesterday the Cubs had their number 2 broadcaster doing the radio game for some reason, so I was absolutely not going to do that. But that's usually what I like to do. It just sounds better. That's the way it belongs.
It has been for a long time the best feature of the app, the streaming app, MLB TV, on like your Roku or your Fire Stick or whatever, that you can choose the radio broadcast instead of the TV broadcast, especially if you had bad TV broadcasters like my favorite baseball team does, and you want to listen to the radio guys instead. They used to have the Nat sound. You could just get the ballpark audio and no broadcasters. And when I tell you I used to watch games like that all the time, that was the best. I don't know why they got rid of that. Need to return. But now they've actually, if you have MLB TV on your phone, you can switch the audio now. So on your mobile device, it used to be, I think, just an option that was on your Roku or your Fire Stick or whatever, or Google TV. But now it's on your phone as well. So if you are out of market and watching the Royals on MLB TV, you can choose to listen to the radio broadcast instead. So we got K-State baseball on the radio. That's what I was talking about. 5:30 pregame as the Wildcats take on the Shockers of Wichita State. Little in-state battle tonight. 5:30 pregame, 6 o'clock, first pitch on the K-State Sports Network here on your home of the Cats, 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. So still to come on the show today, Tim Fitzgerald will join us bottom of this hour, speaking of the Wildcats, for the Wildcat Wrap-up. He'll join us on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline. Looking forward to catching up with Fitz. We'll also have our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you is coming up in a little bit. We're going to talk some Chiefs as well. We're going to read your texts. You send them to the show, 785-272-9429. Text the program today, 785-272-9429. Can also get at us in the YouTube comments if you are watching the show live on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. There is a live chat feature on the web browser and mobile device, the mobile app for YouTube, and you can interact with us and your fellow listeners throughout the program on YouTube. Couple of thoughts on the Royals loss, in case you missed it or tuning in late. Royals fall to the Milwaukee Brewers. They dropped the rubber game of that series in Milwaukee, 3-2 in 11 innings, as Bryce Terang walks it off for Milwaukee with a game-winning suicide squeeze.
Electrifying way to end a game.
It really is. I love a good suicide squeeze. Paul adds in the YouTube comments, having 7 through 9 a batting order that are automatic outs basically shortens every game by 3 innings. Yeah, that's Royals have been running an 0 for 9 out there from the bottom of the order. That's tough to overcome. Paul adds, launch the Manfred Man rule into the sun, or if you absolutely have to keep it, make the runner start at first base instead of second. Christopher chimes in and says, at least not until the 12th inning. So one of the lowest moments of my life as a baseball fan and follower was discovering that players actually love the California tiebreaker because none of them get paid for working overtime. And they want the games to be over so they can go home.
Yeah.
Like, bottom line, this is a rule that limits how long they have to spend at work. And so they're all like, players are overwhelmingly in favor of it.
They love it.
Is what it sounds like. I don't know a single fan who likes it, but the players love it. So it's never going anywhere. Honest to God. And I think I said this on yesterday's show. We were talking about ties. I would rather just play real baseball for 10 or 11 innings, and if there is no winner, just call it a tie.
Yeah, that's the thing that bothers me, is that it's just not real sport. It's not real baseball.
No.
It's an arcade game,
At
which
that point,
I don't
and it never feels like if you can't get a runner from second to home with 3 outs to work with, that's bad offense.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a bad spot to put a reliever in. I will never blame a reliever for allowing the ghost runner. That's a tough spot to be in.
There's a reason they don't make it an earned run.
Yes, there's a reason they don't charge it to the reliever's ERA, because they know it's BS. They know it's unfair. But if you can't drive them in, you're just bad on offense.
I would even be more I wouldn't like it regardless, but I would even be more accepting if it was like, okay, after the 12th inning, we're gonna go to it. Like, play a little real baseball to get there. And again, still wouldn't love it, but at least, like, okay, you played.
Right.
You got to a point where clearly nobody was going to pull ahead. You're in desperation mode. Okay, I get the logic. This is.
Right, because then you get to the point where, okay, we need to really pull the ripcord on this game and save some arms and not.
Because, and I'm sorry to cut you off, man. Like, it's not even like games are dragging on forever anymore. Before we went to extras today, the game was going to be over in like 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was flying.
It was going so quickly. It's not even like you're at the ballpark forever anymore.
Yeah, even an 11-inning game today, 3 hours and 10 minutes. And that was with a lot of nonsense that went on in the extra innings. I still can't believe they called a balk on Carlos Estevez.
It's terrible.
Awful. You won't see a worse call this year than the balk on Estevez. Thankfully, that didn't end up deciding the game. But, yeah, the rule was put in place to avoid like the 2% of games each year that stretch like the 13th and the 14th and the 15th. And both teams are bringing in position players. And then at that point, it kind of stops being baseball too. Like, I understand.
But again, like, I think the other rules, and I'm not saying you disagree with this, I'm just saying the other rules they have tried to implement, I think, make the desperation of putting a guy on second base kind of moot. The games go more quickly now. They've tried to increase the activity on the base paths. Now, the stealing thing worked for 1 year. It tapered off again last season. Like, the no longer having incessant, nonstop pickoff throws. Like, all of those things have led to the games moving more quickly. So why are we in a rush to get out? Again, the players like it, so it's never going to change. And I've accepted that at this point. But it's not real baseball. That's the thing that gets my goat. It's like the college football thing. A 2-point shootout, that's not football. Football is drives, it's possessions. Yeah, explosive plays are part of it, but that's not it. And I came to accept you get one possession each overtime period from the 25, which they still do for the first couple overtimes. But even that is not real football. But I understand it's there's safety, it takes longer, whatever. Basketball gets it right. Okay, put 5 on the clock. Play.
Yeah.
That's what you do.
We're not changing basketball. Yeah, go play.
Yeah, that's the right way to do it. I don't think baseball needs this anymore, but players are never going to. That's the one change that they are pretty much unanimously in favor of.
Yeah, the players all love it because some of them don't even really like baseball that much.
Well, yeah.
Like,
you get that. You get that everywhere. The fair mix of the guys who are doing it because they're good at it and it's a well-paying job, and the guys who are obsessive. But even if you're a baseball obsessive, you're probably cool with it because, when you play football, you get 17 of these guaranteed, and you're probably going to get hurt at some point. Baseball, we are going to play again in 21 hours.
Yeah, tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll get back to this tomorrow.
Another one of these tomorrow. We don't need to play for 15 innings tonight. It is. I hate it. It's anti-baseball. It is Rob Manfred's legacy. I've said it many times. Will be that when his tenure ends as commissioner of baseball, there will be less baseball than there was when he was the commissioner.
By a lot.
That seems like there less minor league baseball, less less amateur baseball, less of the Major League Baseball draft. You have less shorter games by innings, less baseball than there was before. What a legacy for the commissioner of the sport. Anyway, let's talk some football, shall we?
Speaking of commissioners who do no wrong.
Yes, commissioners who are flawless and who have done their jobs perfectly at every turn.
Although, relative to the major sports commissioners, Goodell's 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Which says more about the competition than it does Roger Goodell.
Yes, that is a fact. Yeah, it's either him or Adam Silver, depending on, the day.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Most successful at his job, which is pleasing the owners, it's Goodell by miles.
Yeah.
By miles and miles. He is the most successful of the 4 major sport commissioners.
Yeah, and I mean, it keeps growing. It's been a huge success. Silver has mostly been I think Silver is spineless, personally. I feel like part of the job as commissioner of the sport. I know we're getting off on a tangent. I'm sorry.
That's fine.
The part of the job, yes, your role is you're trying to appease the owners, your real bosses, right? But I do feel like there's part of it that should also be being a steward of the game and promoting the sport itself. Rob Manfred does a terrible job of that. He's absolutely abysmal at that. I don't really know that Adam Silver is always great at that, because I think if he was, he would try to rule a little stronger with an iron fist when it comes to the way his league is covered. I don't know what happened between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. I do not. But every single day, I log on to Blue Sky or Twitter or Reddit or Facebook or Zanga or MySpace or something, and someone
your
says
Zanga password?
Something to the effect of oh man, LeBron missed that shot. Stephen A is going to be talking tomorrow. Why? I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the game. I don't think Silver has done a good job there. But then again, your competition is Gary Bettman, who's a clown. What's the MLS commissioner's name? I know that's
Don Garber.
Yeah. I know a handful of people who are big, sporting fans or, fans of the MLS. Nobody likes that dude. Nobody.
Because there's 48 teams in MLS now.
And 23 players worth watching.
Yes.
Yeah. It's
that might be 22 too many.
Yeah. That's Garber would tell you that.
Yes.
He'd tell you, hey, Messi's in Miami. Go watch them.
Look, we got Leo Messi.
Yeah, that's the
only
rest guy
of the league,
he cares
don't
about.
worry about it. Go watch Messi.
So by comparison's sake, Roger Goodell, the NFL hasn't had a major scandal in 18 months. I mean, he's killing it.
Yeah.
No one's gotten in horrific legal trouble in a while.
Yeah, and he hasn't totally botched one of those. Well, totally botched one of those since the Ray Rice deal, where he saw the video. It's 2 games.
Yeah. And then we
all saw the video. 2 games?
Yeah.
Yeah. That it's gotten better. He's gotten better at his job since then. To a certain degree of the definition.
Speaking of Ray Rice, who really good player for a while.
Yeah.
Nate Tice of Yahoo Sports, a big Devin Neal proponent in his draft coverage. He compared Devin Neal to Ray Rice in a podcast I was listening to. And even he was like, I hate making this comparison because you say this guy's name and all anyone thinks about is the horrible things he did. But he was a really good running back who did a lot of things well. And I think Devin Neal's a smaller Ray Rice. And it was yeah, no, that's true. I can see the comparison. And also no one wants to talk about him because he did a really bad thing. But yeah, there hasn't been anything terrible like that in a long time, which, I mean, you want to talk about damning with faint praise.
Yes.
But still, faint. Again, regard the competition.
2 Chiefs things I wanted to get to real quick. First, a continuation of something we were discussing yesterday and confirmation from Diana Rossini of The Athletic. The Chiefs have asked the league to play on Christmas every year. This is a request of Clark Hunt, Mark Donovan. The Chiefs organization has made an explicit request. We want to be on Christmas every year. We want to be the Cowboys of Christmas. So, enjoy that. If you're a marriage counselor in Greater Kansas City, that's great for you, I'm sure. I'm sure the players are thrilled. Has Clark Hunt bothered to ask any of the players what they think about forfeiting Christmas every year
they're
of
talking
their
about
career?
The locker room, let's do something else.
Yeah, no kidding. Also, it sounds like the Chiefs are going to play in Brazil week 1 against the Chargers. That, of course, will be a Friday night game. Friday night, September 5th. You know what else is Friday night, September 5th, 2025? Week 1 of the Kansas high school football season.
Yeah, it sucks, dude.
Yeah, it really sucks. No way around saying that it sucks.
I remember watching the Packers this past year. It sucked that was on a Friday night. That was super lame. I hated it.
Yeah. That not good. Not good.
No,
we're not in favor here. Something else from The Athletic. Mike Sando of The Athletic, one of their main NFL beat writers, he has his NFL execs unfiltered reviews of every AFC team's offseason. So it's permission to speak freely and anonymous AFC executives talking about what each team has done this offseason. And one of the quotes from an AFC executive about the Chiefs was really interesting to me. And this is what the executive said, quote, they being the Chiefs, they realize they are a defensive football team with a Hall of Fame quarterback. And they are saying, Pat, it is on you to elevate your skill players. We miscalculated on your protection, and it cost us a three-peat. Now we are going to recalibrate up front. So there are two things about that quote I find particularly interesting, and I want to put them as questions to both you, the listener, 785-272-9429 on the text line, and in the YouTube live chat, 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, and to you, Brendan, as well. First question, have the Chiefs successfully recalibrated up front, or is that even a thing these Chiefs can do in one off season? And the recalibration of the offensive line for the long haul, maybe a 2-year or a multi-year project rather than something that can be fixed overnight or just in one off season?
I feel like I view this a lot differently than a lot of folks do, because my question in response to that question to a lot of folks is, what other than left tackle, which was an objective major problem last year, what else needed to be recalibrated? Like, Joe Thuney got moved because the left tackle situation was so bad. Like that, I don't really hold that against the Chiefs' build on the interior part of their line. They had to play Joe Thuney out of position. Like, Creed Humphrey's one of the two best centers in the league. Trey Smith is good. He's one of the better guards, maybe not elite, but he's a good player. And right tackle is fine. It's serviceable at worst. Like, I don't know how much needed to really be recalibrated or adjusted or updated, refurbished, however you want to put it. I think they just needed a new left tackle. So yeah, I think that's something you can get done in one off season. Is Jalen Moore the guy? I don't know.
Yeah, that's why I think this is a multi-year project. I think 2025 is about finding out what the left side of the line is going to look like, because you're locked in with Creed Humphrey long haul. You're going to be locked in with Trey Smith long haul. Those guys are going to be, if they can be career Chiefs, I think that's kind of the vision potentially for those guys. At the very least, keep them through their primes.
Mm-hmm.
Juwan Taylor, likely to be a cap casualty after this coming season. So right tackle might be something that the Chiefs are looking for in the 2026 offseason. The left side of the line. Can Kingsley Suamataia play guard? Can Jalen Moore be an NFL caliber starting left tackle? Those two questions may well determine what the Chiefs' ceiling for 2025 is, more than any other question at any other position. But 2025 is about finding out. And if Moore is your guy, you've got him for an extra year. You can do another contract extension with him. If Suamataia is your guy, you've got a left guard for 2 more years on a rookie contract. If neither of them are the guy, you can go and look again. Go back to the draft and look. Go back to free agency and look, try again, because the market was not particularly friendly for teams looking for left tackles this past offseason. So I do think that the recalibration of the offensive line, such as it is, they have what they hope are short-term fixes. But I think that we may see more calibration coming in the 2026 offseason, and a lot of it depends on how the left side of the line plays in 2025. The other question, from the quote, they realize they are a defensive football team with a Hall of Fame quarterback, and they are saying, Pat, it is on you to elevate your skill players. Is that a sustainable team-building project for the rest of Mahomes' career, or just this phase in particular where Mahomes is in his prime, in his peak, where the Chiefs can say, because in a salary cap league, you have to cheap out on something. Mm-hmm. You have to. You can't pay every position premium money. You have to cut corners somewhere. You have to get affordable talent, affordable production somewhere on your roster. Are the Chiefs right to say it's going to be skill guys for now? We're not going to break the bank for wide receivers and tight ends and running backs. We're going to get what we hope are good players, top 100 draft picks at wide receiver, and say this is as good as you're going to make it. Patrick Mahomes, future Hall of Famer, maybe the GOAT. Is that sustainable for now, or is that like what we're going to see the Chiefs be for the rest of 15's career?
I don't really know that it's very sustainable for now, to be completely honest with you. Like, I That's why I said it right after the Super Bowl this year, that I think the Chiefs needed to add a little bit more juice to the offense. Whatever that ends up looking like, it looks like they'll mostly run it back with the wide receiver room, maybe draft a guy later on. Rashee Rice might be back by training camp, which I'm not putting a whole lot of stock in Rashee Rice being an elite wide receiver this year, and that's no fault of his own. He had a catastrophic injury, so I don't know that he can be that dude coming off of that injury in his first year, because so many guys aren't. But adding some running back juice, adding a more dynamic second tight end behind Travis Kelce as his career hits, it gets close to the 18th green. I think the Chiefs needed to add more there already. So yeah, long term, they certainly need to do a little bit more in that regard. I watched the latter years of Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay, where he had one of the best wide receivers in the last decade in Devontae Adams to throw to, who was great, but there was a lot of throwing to Equanimous St. Brown and Robert Tonyan and, God forbid, MVS, and checking down to running backs you've never heard of other than Aaron Jones. Like, that's not – it worked. They won a lot of games, but then push came to shove in a couple of big moments, and, yeah, Rodgers struggled too. But, hey, who the hell are you throwing to in this moment? Like, oh, this team is just going to double Devontae Adams. Okay, now what? And the Chiefs don't necessarily have that guy, so they can avoid the double team problem. I mean, Kelce, I guess, but Kelce's not even that guy anymore. So they can avoid that particular problem. But again, where you 3rd and 10, you've got to extend the game. 4th and 9, where are you going with the ball? Who's going to be that guy long term? I think the Chiefs still need to figure out that answer. I hope it's Rashee Rice, but again, that I don't think it will be this year because of the injury recovery. I think you need to add more firepower to the offense. You don't need to go and send 3 firsts and 3 seconds to get Justin Jefferson. But could you go and get, like, I don't know, give me like a good but not T. Higgins number 2. Like, you know who would be incredible on this team? Who Chiefs win like 15 games again? I'd love for Jalen Waddle on this team.
Yeah.
Like, give me a player of that caliber. Good player, no doubt a positive for your team, but you don't need a superstar. You just need a little juice. So I don't love the way the Chiefs have done this. It's kind of amazing they won 2 Super Bowls in a row after trading Tyreek Hill. Now, the 22 team, I still think is the best Chiefs team of this era. But the year after that, like, it's kind of incredible. The defense was just so good. Yeah. They got it done. I don't love doing that because I've seen it. I saw my favorite team with a Hall of Fame quarterback try it. At some point, you need guys who make plays.
And the thing about it, though, is that they have probably, in a perfect world, going into 25, their best receiving core since the Tyreek Hill trade. With Rashee Rice coming back off injury, with Xavier Worthy in year 2, and with Hollywood Brown hopefully healthy.
Sure.
Like, this could be a receiving core that helps to elevate Mahomes instead of the other way around. We look at running back, and we're a little nonplussed right now, and tight end is Kelce on his last legs, but this wide receiver group is plenty good. The question will be, do they spend any money to retain these guys moving forward, or what? Or do they just churn through receivers and day 2 picks at the wide receiver spot?
Dude, I'm telling you right now, and I know so many fans in this area feel the same way. There are a lot of good running backs in this draft. Like, you're going to find starting caliber guys in the 5th round of this draft. It's one of the best running back drafts in terms of prospect caliber in a long, long, long time. Don't waste time scouting. Draft Neal or Giddens and just be done with it. You've had scouts at every game. You've seen them more than anybody else. Both those guys, I think, are capable of shouldering a large load, if not a starting load, from day 1 as rookies. Just draft one of them, either Giddens or Neal. I do not care which one. Just take one of them, and you're set for running back. That's your next 4 years at running back, that guy. Don't bother with anything else.
We'll take a break. Tim Fitzgerald's going to join us in just a bit. We got What Is Wrong With You coming up next here on 580 Sports Talk. What is wrong with you? Time on 580 Sports Talk. It's brought to you by our buddy Mo, Ryan Mowinkle, State Farm agent. Give him a call today, 785-273-1572. First round of What is Wrong with You for April. We've got 2 Florida stories. I'll go first out to Melbourne, Florida, where a woman is facing charges after pointing a gun at 2 boys who were fishing in a pond near her backyard. She forced them to the ground with a long gun, and they remained there for about 5 minutes until her husband disarmed her. 59-year-old Donna Elkins called 911 last Friday to report 2 boys fishing in her backyard. She told the 911 dispatcher that she had petrified them and that she stopped them and they were laying on the ground. It was a long black pellet gun, but when it's being pointed at your head, sometimes that's a distinction without a difference. She ordered the boys to the ground and told them they could not leave and threatened to blow their heads off. 2 other children who witnessed the incident provided deputies with a similar account of what happened. The boys were not injured, but Elkins was arrested and booked on 2 charges of aggravated assault and 2 charges of false imprisonment. But by boys, by the way, we mean like teenagers, 15 years old, one of them, who said that he was legitimately concerned that he was going to have his head blown off by this insane woman. You know how out of bounds you have to be to get arrested in Florida on those stand your ground laws for pointing a gun at people?
You know, and maybe this is just because I grew up in a super safe suburb, but like, okay, there's people in your yard, dude. Like, so what? Say, hey, can you guys leave? Like, they're in your yard. If you live in a neighborhood with kids, they're going to be around. Just that's what you signed up for. Come on.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, really bad. Really bad. Your story today.
All right, second story today on What is Wrong with You, brought to you by Ryan Mowinkle and Mowinkle Insurance and Financial Services, RyanMowinkle.com. We've had stories about sex on the side of the road. We have had stories about sex in front of a gas station. We have had stories about sex in front of a Wendy's. This time, we've got a story about sex on top of a grave.
Oh, no.
Back on April 1st, this is real. A couple was caught having sex atop a grave site in a historic Florida cemetery, according to police, who also happened to find meth, Xanax, and Oxy in a nearby vehicle. As detailed by the FHP, the Highway Patrol, officers Tuesday afternoon spotted a white Nissan parked in front of Wild Cow Prairie Cemetery with the windows down and no one nearby. The Sumter County Cemetery has all sorts of marked and unmarked graves dating back to 1850. It's on the Register of Historic Places. At the rear of the cemetery, investigators observed a white male and female engaged in a sexual activity on top of unknown grave number 43. They met 38-year-old Joseph Brown and 46-year-old Stephanie Wegman. Both live in separate residences in the town of Webster. A search of their Nissan, which is registered to Wegman and her husband, who is not Joseph Brown, discovered meth in the passenger seat, and then they looked in her purse, where they found 2 prescription bottles with the labels missing, filled with Xanax and oxycodone. Wegman was arrested on multiple drug charges and booked into county jail, where she is being held without bond. Brown was transported from the cemetery to a local hospital due to a pre-existing injury to his leg.
That's what the Oxy was for.
And they'll arrest him eventually. In addition to the new counts, Wegman has 2 other pending cases for possession of meth, marijuana, and fentanyl, as well as drug paraphernalia. Brown has been in jail a lot. And then they had sex in a cemetery on top of a grave.
I'm just going to say it. I'm just going to blurt it out because if I can't stay in my brain, the Tomb of the Unknown Boner.
Yeah, man. This is so bad.
I think this one wins.
They had sex on a grave. There was a dead person under them.
Unknown grave.
Yeah.
Unmarked.
Yeah.
That's our winner.
Anyway, Tim Fitzgerald.
580 Sports Talk. That's our winner. And What is Wrong with You? Sponsored by Ryan Mowinkle. Mowinkle Insurance and Financial Services. Tim Fitzgerald joins us next on the show. We welcome in on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. Fitz joins us every Wednesday on the program for the Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. And Fitz, spring football is in the air. Chris Kleiman spoke with the media earlier today in Manhattan. We'll start there. What stood out to you about what you heard from the head coach of the K-State Wildcat football team earlier today?
Well, he talked a lot about the 105-man cut down, the roster limit that's pending for the fall, and adding 3 weeks to off-season conditioning and actually shortening spring practice for reasons that he didn't fully go into, but he felt like the conditioning was needed for the fall to get guys bigger, faster, stronger, maybe sustain injuries or hold them off better. But he also says we just don't have enough guys to, do the 2 sets of running at the same time and get all the work in. And he said, we're just going to cut it down and give them what they need to know and just get back to conditioning. He feels like conditioning is the most important thing he can give his team now as the season goes on. And we'll see. It's an interesting approach, but got into other stuff. But I just thought that 105-man limit is going to really impact college athletics. And coaches are going to be forced to make cuts, which is not something they've really done in the past, but it's going to be here.
And in particular, Fitz, I got to believe that may harm at a higher level than some other programs, a place like Kansas State that has been, I don't want to say reliant, maybe that's not the right word, but they have leaned heavily on PWOs, in-state walk-ons, and a lot of them have come really good for K-State over the course of their careers. That's been something that has helped Kansas State build a program, build a winner, be what K-State is. And if there are fewer of those guys that they can take, then that lessens the opportunity that they're able to find some of those diamonds in the rough that have helped to make K-State football what it is.
Yeah, you said it. I think the NCAA, their heart was in the right place, but this doesn't make sense. A lot of programs have had walk-on success. Still have walk-ons. You can offer up to 85 scholarships, but when this hits, you can offer all 105 guys scholarships, but you don't have to. And I think a lot of programs won't offer 105, maybe including K-State, just so that they can keep the finances down in this revenue sharing era we're heading into. So, you can just look through the history of K-State football, not even that far back. Brennan Mott. I mean, there's been Senate. It's incredible how many great walk-ons have grown into great football players at Kansas State, and these guys just may not get a chance in the future. But they won't be getting chances at other schools, and there's going to be a lot of guys rolling through the portal or simply not playing college football because there's not a roster spot for them. And I don't know if that's what the NCAA wanted, but that's what they've done. And the coaches, Coach Kleiman said, are pushing back on it because they had no say in the process, which is absurd.
Avery Johnson also spoke to the media today in Manhattan. Anything interesting from QB1?
Just the fact that you can tell he's bigger. I mean, he talks about 4 guys that ran the 23 miles per hour and how they're eyeing 24 now. And BJ Payne came in and he looked bigger. I think these guys, I feel like these younger guys are ready to take the helm of this team and take it to something different. Maybe a step up. But he looks carried himself like a true freshman or even last year as a true sophomore. But you can tell he's an upperclassman. He feels it, and I think the players around him sense it too. That already Avery Johnson's realizing his time as a college football player is running out, and it's time to take care of business.
Tim Fitzgerald is our guest. GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Become a VIP subscriber today and get Fitz and his staff's outstanding insight into all things K-State throughout the year. That's GoPowerCat.com. Check out Fitz, of course, Wednesdays on the Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Let's pivot to hoops, Fitz. The transfer portal is open. To date, nobody has jumped into the portal from K-State, but that doesn't mean that there are not some expected departures. And we're hearing, and your staff is hearing as well, that the departures, they may not be limited to players. Are we looking at a staff shakeup potentially for Jerome Tang?
I think some guys might be, leaving for other opportunities, and Yeah, I just think it's odd we haven't found about any of this stuff yet. I believe Rodney Perry isn't even with the staff right now. I think he's moved on to another job, but we'll see. There's talks about other changes, but I'm most shocked that no players have entered the portal. I think we can all agree that Caleb Rich is probably leaving, and I suspected there was an early April NIL payment that they were holding on. And now that April 1's passed, we still don't see any action. So I don't know. I'm a little confused by it. I think even Jerome Tang expects one or two to go for sure, and he still hasn't seen it.
Talking to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for today's Wildcat Wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Go check out Fitz's great work over at GoPowerCat, and make sure you're VIP at 24/7 as well for all the best inside scoops into what's going on with K-State. So from the folks who might be departing the program, Fitz, to the pieces that might be joining the program, should there be some open spots. One guy I know who's been on campus, folks over at 24/7 have reported this. He, I believe, put it on his Instagram story as well. Markel Sutton, the Summit League Player of the Year from Nebraska Omaha. He took a visit earlier this week. He's got a few others scheduled as well. I like his game. That was a fun Omaha team. He's a hard-nosed player. He's big. He's got size. Feels like a really good fit for what Jerome Tang likes out of his big men, his wings. What do you think about Sutton from what you've seen, and do you feel like he'd be a good fit?
I do. I mean, they certainly need some size and shooting. I mean, we're hearing more Nigel Pack rumors about him possibly returning. But those are two spots they need. They need someone that can add a little size to the roster, get after it on the board. And they also need a pure scorer that could light it up. And I think Nigel, has shown he can do that in Manhattan before departing for Miami 3 years ago. We'll just see how this plays out. Heck, they don't even know how many roster spots they have right now because they don't know how many are leaving. But I think we'll see about 4 or 5 guys come into the portal.
The Pack thing is so interesting. Dan made a point to me off the air yesterday that isn't it crazy when he left a couple of years ago, Tang came in. He was one of the last guys who entered the portal that year when Tang kind of turned over the roster, and rightfully so. And it was unbelievable that he got $400,000 per year for 2 years to go to Miami. Like, oh my God, this money is ridiculous. Now, if you believe even 50% of the dollar number rumors out there, the money is preposterous for players who are not as good as Nigel Pack is. It's amazing how quickly that's turned. As for the player himself, do you feel like that's a fit to come back? Do you think the relationships are good enough? His feelings about K-State are good enough? Like, does it feel like something that is plausible beyond just kind of a fun fantasy?
I do think it's plausible because, as you mentioned, he actually considered staying, and then the money came into play. It's funny now how much the NIL market has changed, as you mentioned. We were appalled by $400,000. Now that seems like a damn bargain. I don't know. I mean, it depends on what they want to pay him. But I think it's an indication that he was really comfortable playing at K-State. And he was comfortable with Coach Tang and the staff, but something let him. There's people in his ear saying leave, and the money offer came, and he went. He had some good time at Miami, but they fell off the end of the table. So we'll see. The portal's just such a strange thing. It's like speed dating, and guys just make hair trigger decisions on what they're doing based on money or things that really don't impact their happiness as much as they think they will. They just need to pick the right program and worry about the money later.
You mentioned the need for some size and the need for some shooting to be injected into this program during this offseason. If you had to rank those and say one of these is even more important than the other, what would you put at the top of the wish list from those two traits?
Oh my gosh, I need them both so badly. Probably scoring. They just need a pure scorer or two that can really come in and put points up. You look at some of these teams that advanced a long ways, and a star player goes out and they never miss a beat. And they just haven't had that depth the last 2 seasons at K-State. But depending on who stays and who goes, they definitely need 1 or 2 big men. Maybe more of that, but we'll see how that sorts itself out.
How about on the women's front? Obviously, great year getting back to the Sweet 16 for Jeff Mitty's group. The end of the road for Serena Sundell and Ayoka Lee, among others, and their incredible careers. A couple of players have entered the portal. Briley Glenn, just about an hour or so ago, I think the news broke that she is heading into the portal. Have you heard anything about how much turnover there might be for Jeff Mitty's roster?
No, Briley really surprised me. She redshirted this year, watched her sister play. She was heavily engaged with this team. I mean, it's not like she was moping on the bench. She was always front and center with team stuff. And so her leaving surprised me a little bit. But I think, we're seeing the women's portal really pick up some steam. I saw some interesting numbers. I think it was on our message boards today at Wabash Station that basically 25% of women's basketball players that played Division I hoops are in the portal. And that's insane. That's just absolute insanity. How many people are in the portal, and I don't know how much NIL is impacting any of this, but I think K-State's in a good position to land some people from the portal, and maybe Briley recognizes that they're going to bring in some people that are going to put her on the bench again.
What does Jeff Mitty need to seek out in the transfer portal? It certainly seemed like they lost to USC in the Sweet 16 because USC, even without Juju Watkins, was a lot more athletic than K-State was. Is it as simple as we need to get more athletic? That's a catch-all term, certainly. But what are the other things that they're going to have to go and look for and try and find so they can keep on an upward trajectory?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to find a replacement in the post for Ayoka Lee, and replacing Serena Sundell is absolutely impossible. Immediately, she grew into one of the great players in K-State basketball history through her time. So you need to really focus in on size and athleticism because the women's game is getting bigger and bigger. You mentioned it. K-State's a big team, and they were small compared to USC. They had a couple players on that roster that, minus Juju, who's their best player, that ran 6'2", 6'3", and were hyper athletic and really difficult, strong. And I think it really gave Lee some issues, and it was just a hard matchup. I think we're going to see them try to replicate that a little bit with K-State's roster and just go get some more players. Just load up, and I think we're going to see Jeff Mitty in the portal quite a bit.
Tim Fitzgerald and his staff cover K-State athletics at gopowercat.com. Become a VIP subscriber to 24/7 Sports today. You will not regret the inside info and the access you get to all things K-State. Fitz joins us every Wednesday on the Fleming Place Wine and Spirits hotline on the Wildcat Wrap-up. Fitz, always a pleasure. We'll do it again next week.
Thank you, my friend.
That is Tim Fitzgerald. We'll step aside for a timeout. When we come back, we'll wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, 580 Sports Talk. We got a minute here. Let's play a quick round of one gotta go, shall we, Brendan?
Yeah, I guess this is kind of a reverse one gotta go. I'm not going to ask you which player from a roster should leave because that seems unnecessarily cruel. So if you are building a college basketball team through the portal, you got your option of one of the 3 non-Flory KU guys who have entered so far, because that's too easy. You get David Coit, 1 year left. You know what he is. Rakees Passmore, who could be anything, maybe not good, given how KU seems to think about him. Or Rylan Griffin, who in theory is an awesome player, maybe not so much in practice. Which one are you taking?
I think I take the flyer on Passmore. The recruiting pedigree and get him in the program. Hope that you're going to have him for 2, maybe 3 years, and take a chance on that, because I am of the belief, and it will be interesting to see how many of these opinions change across college basketball, that those 1-year guys make certain sense for some programs. But there are a lot of programs out there who would benefit from bringing in guys who, hey, maybe it didn't work at your first stop and you need to change the scenery, but you'll be culture guys in my program. You'll help my program. You'll grow in my program. You'll be multi-year contributors in my program. That would be my choice.
I think I'm leaning with Passmore too. Probably not Coit. Griffin, again, the idea of him is nice. His combined conference plus minus the last 2 years, +3. That's it. All that hype at Alabama, that's it.
We've got one more half hour of 580 Sports Talk. We'll do headlines and get out of here. Coming up next, 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Final half hour of this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. Thanks for hanging out with us, spending part of your hump day with us here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and on video on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and on Facebook at WIBW News. I'm Dan Lucero, flying the plane solo the rest of the way. Rest of the crew will be back on tomorrow's show, and we'll do a regular, unencumbered 3 to 6 talk show, which during baseball season, you don't always get those. You're not getting one today, for instance. We came on a little late because the Royals went to extras in Milwaukee today. Lost 3-2 on a Bryce Terang suicide squeeze in the 11th. We broke that down. We talked some Chiefs. We talked to Tim Fitzgerald. We did What Is Wrong With You earlier on the show. If you missed any of that, our YouTube stream is archived on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Hello to anybody watching us after the fact. Anybody who's watching us not live. You're watching this at like 8 o'clock tonight. You missed the show. You want to catch up. Hello to you specifically. Thanks for watching the show. Thanks for making the effort. You can also listen to the podcast edition of the program, the audio-only version, if we're just too painful to look at, which that's rude. That hurts my feelings a little bit. But if you prefer the audio version of 580 Sports Talk, you can check out the podcast on our website, 580WIBW.com, and you can find us on Spotify by searching for 580 Sports Talk. So we've handled all of that, and then we're out of here at 5:30 today for K-State baseball. The Cats and the Shocks, Wichita State and K-State on the diamond, a little midweek in-state action. 5:30 pregame on the K-State Sports Network here on 580 WIBW, FM 104.9. So that is where we will give way today. So we got to get to some sports headlines, and then we'll do a final word and get on out of here. And it's the royal we. Again, at this point, it's just me. It's just Dan hanging out with you the rest of the way. Hello to everybody again watching on the YouTube stream. Would love to hear from you in the live chat on YouTube. You can also text the program 785-272-9429. Let's get into those 580 Sports Talk headlines, shall we? We'll start with a headline from 24/7 Sports and our guy, Michael Swain, our KU insider. The headline is, Darren Peterson named MVP of the McDonald's All-American game, thanks to stellar performance. If you were a Kansas Jayhawk fan, you were hoping for better days ahead for the proud program starting in the 2025-26 season. You had to love what you saw from Bucket Jones at the McDonald's All-America game last night. Peterson helped push the West to a 13-point win over the East, 105-92. And Peterson was named a co-MVP of the game, sharing the honor with Cameron Boozer, one of Carlos Boozer's twin sons, who is signed with Duke. Peterson is the fourth future Jayhawk to win the MVP of the McDonald's All-American game. The other three, it's a mixed bag. Jacques Vaughn, excellent college career. Josh Jackson, really good one and done. Shek Diallo. Less said about his KU career, the better, mostly because there's not that much to say about his KU career. Peterson had 18 points, which was the most of any player. 7 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3 steals. Had 10 of the West's 31 points in the fourth quarter, including a couple of highlight reel dunks. It was an impressive performance. Got a chance to watch some of the highlights and was talking to Brendan about this off the air. I would describe Bucket Jones, his game, as mature. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of smoothness. There's a lot of polish to his games, his movement out on the floor. Some 18-year-old basketball prospects, they're a bit like wild horses. They're a bit all over the place at times. AJ Dibansa, who's the number 1 player in the class, according to some recruiting services, he's going to play at BYU. He's kind of a wild horse. Of a prospect where there's just not that polish to him yet. He's going to be a great player. Some of that is growing into the frame a little bit. Some of the bigger prospects, you're 17, 18, and all of a sudden you're 6'9". You're growing into the frame a little bit. So it's not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. It's just reality for a lot of those young high school prospects. Darren Peterson doesn't look like he's going to come to Lawrence with any of that. His game is very polished, very mature. And that doesn't mean he doesn't have room to grow. It just means that he feels very in control. that his movements are purposeful, that his decision-making is purposeful, that he understands how to play the game and how best to play his game. And there's a reason Bill Self is as excited as he is about a guy like Darren Peterson. And you think of all of the great freshmen that KU has brought into their program, a lot of high-profile one-and-dones, big-time recruits. Bill Self keeps saying, this is the best one we've ever had. Talking about Bucket Jones. And if you watched the McDonald's All-America game or even just caught some of the highlights last night, I think you saw what all the hubbub was about. And it was an impressive performance. And I think I have to imagine if you're a KU fan and you saw that, you're feeling pretty good about what he's going to bring to next year's Kansas team. And he is so talented that I think it puts a roster purge for Kansas, which they're kind of going through right now. Everybody's leaving in the transfer. Not everybody, but you get the idea. A lot of guys are leaving, even some unexpected departures in the transfer portal, like David Coy to a certain extent, certainly Flory Badunga. But it makes sense when you frame it as we've got to put together a roster for 1 year to play with that guy. He's going to be our best player from day one. And I think that's entirely possible. Like, this is the kind of 5-star recruit that you bring in, and he's the guy. Like, it is not like he is expected by some to be the number 1 pick in the 2026 NBA draft. So in that frame, it is not unlike Duke getting Cooper Flagg to come, right? Where Duke knew, he's only going to have a guy like Cooper Flagg for a year. Okay, how do we make the rest of the roster make sense around this guy? Even if it's only for a year, we've got to put a roster together that makes sense around him. And I think Kansas is going to do the same thing with Darren Peterson and figure out what is the best way we can put a roster around this guy to maximize him and have him maximize everybody else. He is a ceiling raiser. I don't think there's any question about that. Very excited to see what he's going to do at Allen Fieldhouse next year. Next headline. Let's stay in the world of amateur basketball and go to the Wooden Award website, woodenaward.com. They named their top 5 finalists for the Wooden Award and the 10-player Wooden Award All-America teams. Those came out late last night. The 5 finalists for the most prestigious Player of the Year award in men's college basketball: Auburn's Janai Broome, Florida's Walter Clayton, Duke's Cooper Flagg, Alabama's Mark Sears, and Purdue's Braden Smith. The other 5 players on the All-America team: Houston's L.J. Cryer, Marquette's Cam Jones, Creighton's Ryan Kalkbrenner, Tennessee's Chaz Lanier, and John Tanji from Wisconsin. So those are your first look at what the All-America teams may look like. I have trouble with Braden Smith. I do. I know he puts up good numbers. I know everybody loves him. Big Ten, yada, yada. I guess what it comes down to is I don't really respect Big Ten basketball. I don't have any good reason for not respecting Big Ten basketball other than, like, that is the league I am most likely to see a final score in the 50s. And that doesn't really do it for me. I would probably have gone Cryer, but I'm a Big 12 honk, I guess. I guess I'm just a huge Big 12 homer now these days. I would have had him in my Wooden Award finalist, but Cooper Flagg's going to win it. I think there was some thought that Janai Broome could have won it, but he wasn't really the same after his injury, which is not to say he wasn't still very good, but he was probably the best player in college basketball before he had that ankle injury. Over on the women's side, the top 5 finalists for the Wooden Award: UCLA's Lauren Betts, Grandview High School, Aurora, Colorado. Texas's Madison Booker, UConn's Paige Beckers, Notre Dame's Hannah Hidalgo, and the recently injured Juju Watkins of USC. The other All-Americans on the women's side: Kentucky's Georgia Amore, Florida State's Tanaya Latson, who's in the transfer portal, Notre Dame's Olivia Miles, who is also in the transfer portal, LSU's Anise Amaro, and TCU's Haley Van Lith. So those are your Wooden Award All-Americans for men's and women's basketball. Moving right along on our headlines, let's go to baseball for this headline from ESPN.com. Dodgers 7-0 start ties 1933 Yanks. It is the best start to a season for a reigning champion since 1933. Dodgers beat the Braves last night 3-1. Only 2 Dodger teams have started a season on a longer winning streak, and both of those came back when they were dem bums in Brooklyn, 1940 and 1955. And this is the thing that's wild. Like, usually a team puts together a winning streak to start a season, and it's because everything is clicking. Like, everything is going well, firing, if you will, on all cylinders. Like the Padres, for example. They're 6-0, maybe in first place in any other division, and Gavin Sheets is hitting 500 with 5 RBI. And they've got 2 guys on their pitching staff with ERAs at 0. And their bullpen, like their important bullpen guys, haven't allowed an earned run yet. Like, that's what it looks like when a team is just hitting on all cylinders for a week-long stretch. The Dodgers really haven't fired on all cylinders quite like that. Like, Shohei Ohtani's OPSing near 1,000, but it's not like 1,500. It's lower than Gavin Sheets' OPS. As a team, their OPS is below 800, in fact. And pitching-wise, they've got a couple of starters who've thrown shutout ball, including Dustin May last night, 5 innings, 1 run. It was unearned. But their bullpen's been a little iffy. Tanner Scott's blown a save. It's not been flawless for the Dodgers. And they've played a Braves team that made the playoffs last year, a Tigers team that made the playoffs last year, and a Cubs team that a lot of people, myself included, think is going to make the playoffs this year. And they're 7-0 anyway. What happens when they start playing well? What happens when they click on all cylinders? What does that look like? I am of the belief that the 116 win threshold is in danger this year, that the Dodgers could threaten that. I think that is entirely possible. Now, there are so many things that can happen in a 162-game season that could derail that. But I think the Dodgers have a real shot at that record. 116 wins is the most in a regular season, most recently accomplished by the 2001 Seattle Mariners, who famously failed to make the World Series that year, lost to the Yankees in the ALCS. You know, I wish the Dodgers ill. You know, I am no fan of those West Coast boys in blue. But if this is what it looks like when they're just kind of playing decent, what is it going to look like when they click? That's terrifying to consider, particularly if you're the Padres, who are playing great. You should be on cloud 9 and you're half a game out of first place, undefeated a week into the season, and you're half a game out of first place. Tough luck. Should have gone and played in Tokyo if you want to be in first place, I suppose. Let's keep it rolling on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Got another one from ESPN.com. Sources. This one's near and dear to my heart. NBA star Carmelo Anthony elected to Hall of Fame. The Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame class of 2025 has yet to be fully announced, but Carmelo Anthony has been notified that he is going in on the first ballot. I know there are some KU fans out there who still curse the name Carmelo Anthony, the stellar freshman who helped Syracuse beat KU in the 2003 national championship game. Yeah, we're not that young anymore. 2023. We're not that young. For me, as somebody growing up in Denver, Carmelo Anthony was the person who made the Denver Nuggets mean something again. And that will always put Melo in a very special place in my heart as a sports fan. A lot of the reaction to this, and this happens a lot when guys get put in the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame, is, why are they going to the Hall of Fame? They never won anything. Carmelo never won a ring. No rings. Ringless. Fraud. Never won a ring. Why is he going into the Hall of Fame? They did it with Tracy McGrady when he got in like a decade ago. Listen, it's not the NBA Hall of Fame, right? It's the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. This is for contributions in basketball. And yes, your college contributions are part of this. And Carmelo Anthony is on a very short list of the greatest freshmen, greatest one-year college basketball players ever. It is a short list. There are not many you would put above him. For me, in my lifetime, Anthony Davis, Melo. No disrespect to like Cooper Flagg, But nah, it's Anthony Davis and it's Carmelo Anthony. And honestly, I'm biased. I flipped the order. I put Carmelo above the unibrow. Those are the best one-year college basketball players I've ever seen. And it's also not just your college and your professional achievements. It's also your achievements as a basketball player representing your country. Carmelo Anthony won 3 gold medals, and he was a big part of the gold medal winning teams in 2008, 2012, and 2016. When he wrapped up his Olympic career, he was the most decorated American basketball player of all time. And that's despite the fact that he was on the bad vibes bronze medal team of 2004 when he and LeBron were just kids and really probably shouldn't have been on the Olympic team yet. But he won 3 straight gold medals, and he was a big, big part of those gold medals. He was a great international player. Shorter three-point line, a little bit more freedom of movement. That was the style of play Melo was born for. So this is a no-brainer. Not to mention he was 10th on the all-time scoring list in NBA history when he retired. This is an all-time great player. I will not brook any Carmelo Anthony slander. I understand if you're a KU fan, you feel a certain type of way. I understand that there were certainly some drawbacks about his game. Trust me, I watched a lot of Carmelo Anthony play basketball. I know he wasn't the most committed on the defensive end. I know he was not always a great teammate. I know his divorce from the Nuggets got really ugly. It's still the guy that made basketball matter in my hometown again, man. Made my team matter again. And they've pretty much mattered nonstop ever since they drafted him 3rd overall in 2003. So that's my guy, and I'm glad that he's going into the Hall of Fame. It's just a bummer the Nuggets are never going to be able to retire his number. You see, there's another guy wearing 15 for the Nuggets these days. See what he did last night? Don't ask me how the game went. Just, did you see what that current number 15 for the Nuggets did last night? Anyway, I'm making it a little bit too much about myself. That's a cue to get to a break. We'll come back with a final word to wrap up this short and final hour of 580 Sports Talk. But first, a quick word for my friends at Great Life here in Topeka. I'm a Great Life all-inclusive member. I love the benefits it gives me and my family access to the 7 workout facilities and the 5 golf courses around the Topeka area, and I really am chomping at the bit to get the sticks out, start playing some golf. The weather hasn't provided for that, and other reasons, work-related reasons haven't provided for that, but I am chomping at the bit to get out there, so I hope to see some of you out there become Great Life members. Go to greatlifetopeka.com. Final word next. We're wrapping up and walking off a little early today with K-State baseball coming up. So we've got the final word here for you on 580 Sports Talk. The final word for me today is, boy, the Royals were unpleasant to watch today because they could not hit the broadside of a barn. Just 4 hits in 11 innings, 14 strikeouts to 1 walk. Gross. And even worse, when the Royals had chances to score late in the game, when they had runners in scoring position in the 9th, the 10th, and the 11th, it was the top of the order that let them down with some truly revolting at-bats. Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino in the 9th. Jonathan India caught looking with a runner on 3rd to end the 11th. The inning the Royals eventually lost by a run in. Yeah, that was bad. And the Royals are not going to survive a lot of games this year where their best hitters don't hit. Same as it was last year. They may have one more good hitter than they did last year in India, but they got to find some more guys who are going to give them some punch. Michael Massey had 2 hits today. That was good to see. Kevin Biggio drove in a run with a ground ball with eyes. His at-bats have been pretty decent, honestly, but that was a hard one to watch today, and it's always hard to watch when you've already got a team that is offensively challenged, and then the best guys have bad days. But it's just one day. Cole Reagans was really good. Let that be the hope, the ember in your heart going into a Royals off day tomorrow before they come back for a 7-game homestand starting Friday at the K. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk today. We got a regular show tomorrow, 3 until 6. Until then, enjoy some K-State baseball tonight. K-State and Wichita State. Pregame coming up in just a little bit. We're back at it at 3 o'clock tomorrow. For Brendan, I'm Dan. This has been 580 Sports Talk on 580 WIBW. Good night.